welcome back to another Insider. In this week, we still go a little off topic, so we are not discussing translation directly, but we are discussing languages. And last week, or should I say, the previous week, since last week we had a little break, we spoke about when it's time to introduce a second language to your children, which I consider something very important. And today we continue on the same topic of learning a second language, but this time around we will be talking about adults and migration. So when you migrate to another country, learning the language and everything about learning the language of that country and the importance of doing so. So stick around and let's talk about languages today. We all know that today, in this day and age, in the global era, knowing more than one language is definitely a plus, a very, very important tool, because obviously it opens lots of doors in terms of employment, etc. As you obviously can expand to other cultures, to other countries of that second language that you might know, second or third. Some people know more than one, and that's fantastic. But if when you in your own country, and obviously not intending to migrate, this second language or learning a second language is so important. Obviously, if you migrating to another country, that becomes essential. In my view, it becomes essential. You really need to know the language of that country to be able to do lots of things. Once again, and as I said on my last Insider, this is not any sort of advice or anything. This is just my personal opinion on this. Again, as a linguist and as someone that also migrated. I was born, as you all know, I was born in Portugal, and I migrated to Australia when I was 30 years old. I've been living here for almost 20, almost 17, sorry. I think I'm a bit confused. And obviously the language has never been a problem for me, because when I actually moved into Australia, I was already a translator. I had just finished my translation course. I was bilingual already. I was speaking both languages. However, and I have said this before, I don't think I would be the same professional and I would have the same quality that I do if I had not moved into Australia, and if I was not living in an English-speaking country where I have a full and direct contact with the culture and all things that comes with it. So I think that's important as well. But that's issue for another video, and I will be talking about this because it's something that I also think is important in terms of being a translator. I also think it's important because, as you know, culture is something that is essential in our job. However, today I'm talking about people that migrate to another country. And living in Australia for so many years and witnessing what goes on, I have an opinion about this, and every single time I come in contact with people that have recently arrived in Australia, either from Portugal or from any other country, who may have or may not speak the language fluently, I always recommend them that their first priority should be learning English, because in my view it is something that I consider essential for so many reasons. First of all, it is important to know the language of the country so you can, easily navigate things and you can easily function within the country. I think it's easy to understand because you can see that, for example, in the country that you came from, you see that if you didn't know the language, you wouldn't be able to do the things that you did while you were there. So that's easy to see. But another thing that I honestly think that is very important is that actually knowing the language of the country that you move into opens lots of doors. It gives you lots of opportunities because you will learn the language, you will have access to better employment opportunities because you are fluent, you speak the language, that it's not a barrier to you, and you can, for example, aspire to be something else, something that you would love to be. And in a lot of cases, we see that people that were qualified in certain technical professions in other countries, and then because of the language barrier, they end up doing other jobs that they sometimes may not be as happy as they would be if they were working in their field in what they would like to work with. But for that, you really need to learn the language, and it's not difficult. You just have to put a little effort into it. If you really get, as I said, and as I say with everything, it's all in our head, it's all in our mindset. If you put in your mind that you really want to do this, you can do it. You just put an effort into it and it will happen. The fact that you are already living in a country that speaks that language is a help because you have constant contact with the language. You should watch TV, you should watch the news and see how they pronounce the words, how they speak, and that will help you get all those things, all the pronunciation, even the cultural traces that you will find, because you will find, as in any other language, but especially with languages that have variants such as Portuguese, such as English, such as Spanish, you will see that depending on the country that you are, you will find different ways of pronunciation, different cultural traces. And that's very important that you learn that, because it will give you that access to that culture, that access of learning that culture and becoming more confident and more independent. I think that is very, very important. And that's one of the things that I strongly encourage everyone to do. Because, once you learn the language, as I said, you get access to better employment options. You may have access to studies as well, even though there's a lot of students in Australia that come here to study and then they learn English while they're here. So you can do both, and that's great. You can have also, because you speak the language, it's easier for you to understand regulations, to understand the laws, to understand how everything is done within the country, and therefore it will become easier for you to navigate through all the system, and of course protecting yourself. For example, let's take a very simple case. Consumer law. If you understand the language, if you can read, let's take Australia as an example, if you can read English, you can go to the ACCC page, you can read everything in English, and it's easier for you to understand. I know that in Australia, a lot of websites and a lot of companies and the government provides things translated in several languages. But that does not take away from the need to learn the official language, because that opens doors, that makes everything easier. When you go to the doctor, you don't need to ask for help to go to a doctor. You will be able to communicate with your doctor efficiently. When you go, if in an event that you need a lawyer for something, you also don't need any help with that. You can deal with your lawyer on your own. And obviously sometimes, and people tend to have, especially elderly people, have that privacy issues. They don't really like to get as many people involved, and sometimes when I've seen that in the Portuguese community a lot, especially with doctors, they really don't like to have an interpreter, because they wouldn't like to be talking about their health issues in front of a stranger, basically, because they already have the relationship with the doctor. So all of these things come around if you don't speak the language fluently. So I think, and today I decided to do this insider about this subject, because I would like to tell everyone, independently, regardless of your age, it's never too late to learn another language. It's never too late to do whatever you want. It's never too late to fulfill your dreams. And if your dream is to move into another country that speaks another language, it's never too late to learn that language, whatever it might be. So it's, as I said, it's all in your mind. Put your mindset, change your mindset, get yourself a positive mindset, and say to yourself, I can do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to be independent, and I'm going to do whatever I want. The sky is the limit. You can do whatever you want. I think that's very important, because it just, as I said, it just opens doors, opens your horizons as well, because it is easier to understand the culture of the country you have moved in, because you speak the language. And as I said in previous videos and in lots of my articles, you get the culture. The language is a vehicle through which you pass on the culture of a country. So if you speak the language, you can understand the culture, because you can receive all that culture from the locals, from people that already live in the country. But also you can show a little bit of your culture, of the culture of the country where you came from, to the people on the country that you have moved in. And that's a very, very interesting cultural exchange that enriches everyone. If you think about it, enriches everyone, because everyone learns something new about some other culture. And everyone, we as humans, I think we tend to be very curious, and we always like to know about new things, about new ways of doing things, new cultures, new types of food, etc., etc. So what best than a language to communicate effectively all these things? So I think, for all reasons, knowing a language is essential if you move into another country. I said it before, I think knowing more than one language in today's world is very important. But if you move into another country, I think that would not just be important, it becomes essential. So I hope you really like it, and I hope you put your mindset to work. And that's all for today. I hope you will really like this insider. As I said, this April was a short month in terms of content production, because of all the public holidays. But and I decided, because it was a short amount, I decided, well, I'm gonna go a little bit off topic. Yes, I did go a little bit off topic. None of the insiders for April were directly related to translation, even though indirectly you kind of see that there is a correlation between things. And I think these two were very important topics. I think it's important, for example, that if you live in a country and you have another cultural background, it's important that your children learn more than one language, even if you don't have heritage or anything like that. I do think that it's important to learn a second language. When I was living in Portugal, that was basically the rule. In fact, we would learn three languages there. Obviously, you learn Portuguese because you were in Portugal, but then you would have, and I explained this before, you will have to learn one language when you go to year 5, which in my case I chose French, which was a bit of a mistake. And then in year 7 you choose a second language. People that and this was in the olden days. The system has changed quite a bit, but I do think that the language structure is still similar, and they still have this structure going on. And then if you go in high school, because you have to choose certain areas, and if you went into the language area, you would have another you could choose to have another language, which some of my friends would choose German, because they would already have the French and the English, and then the last one would be German. Back in those days, I don't know if they have more languages available these days, but back in the day these were the ones available. So I think it's very important, because it just gives you, it opens up your mind, opens up lots of doors in terms of a job, etc. So I think it's a good thing. But of course, if you move into another country, I do think that that's seriously one of the main things, because once you know the language, everything becomes easier after that, because you integrate, you know the rules, you can deal with government departments, you can deal with everything, because you actually speak the same language and you are able to communicate. And if they ask you any question, you will be able to answer it with no issues whatsoever. And I think that's easy. In terms of employment, obviously you can get better opportunities in terms of employment, because you also speak the language, and you also can get better positions. So it's all a plus. I think these days we no longer live in a limited world that we just speak one language and that's it. I think we live in a world that the more languages that we speak, the better. And thinking of that, I decided to talk to you about this today. I hope you really enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I want to hear your experiences. Do you live in a foreign country? How many languages do you speak? How many languages would you like to speak? Because I know a lot of people, some of them are my colleagues, others are not, that they keep on learning languages, and they speak lots of languages, and that's something that is fantastic. And sometimes people retire, and because they want to keep their mind active, they decide to learn another language, which is, I think, is fantastic. It's a fantastic way of keeping yourself occupied, learning a new skill, learning a new language, getting in contact with a new culture. Even if you're not going to live in a country that speaks that language, why not learning it? I always think that's always a good idea. So tell me about your experiences. How many languages do you speak? Do you live in a foreign country? Would you like to live in a foreign country? And if so, which country would you like to live? Tell me about your experiences. Tell me about your suggestions. What do you suggest? How did you learn? If you live in a foreign country, how did you learn the language of that country? Just let's start this conversation. And of course, you know the drill. Put a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you get a notification of a new insider every week. Again, we're gonna have a break next week because there'll be Anzac Day. So there won't be insider, but I will be back in May for more. So see you in 2 weeks. And of course, I would like to say, lest we forget, for all our fallen soldiers, it's a very important date for us, for Australia and New Zealand. And of course, I would like to pay my respects as well. So see you then. Have a lovely week, And I'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you so very much for watching. Bye.